He slammed my birthday cake onto the floor. Frosting splattered across the tiles, candles still burning in the mess. My niece giggled. "Guess you don't deserve nice things, Aunt Claire." Everyone laughed, even my mother. My name is Daisy Wilson, and I used to believe that family meant love, until the night they turned my graduation into a humiliation I'll never forget. The backyard looked beautiful that evening. Fairy lights hung between the trees, the smell of grilled food filled the air, and laughter floated like music across the lawn. Anyone passing by would have thought it was a picture-perfect family celebration. But I knew better. Behind those polished smiles lived years of silent judgment, comparison, and quiet cruelty. The kind that hides behind jokes. It was supposed to be my night. The night I finally graduated after years of sleepless study, working part-time, saving every penny. But somehow the evening didn't feel like mine at all. My mother, Linda, played hostess as if she were entertaining celebrities, while my sister, Amanda, sat surrounded by relatives, glowing in her new floral dress. Her son, Liam, perched proudly beside her, smirking every time he caught me watching. "Tell us about your Florida trip," someone shouted. Amanda flipped her hair, grinning. "Oh, it was amazing. Mom insisted we stay longer." Mom smiled like she'd just earned a medal. "Well, they deserve a little fun." Everyone laughed, nodded, cheered. I smiled too, that polite, fake kind of smile people wear when they know they're invisible. No one asked how Seattle was. No one mentioned my degree. On the far corner of the table, my cake sat, white frosting, blue letters that said, "Congratulations, Daisy." It was pushed aside next to half-empty soda cans, as if it were something someone forgot to throw away. I stared at it a little too long. That cake, forgotten, ignored, it looked exactly how I felt. A soft breeze passed through the backyard. For a moment, I wanted to believe that maybe this time would be different, that maybe someone would stand up for me, recognize me. But then Liam's laughter broke through the air. "Aunt Daisy!" he shouted, running toward the table. "Mom says you only got your degree to brag." The words hit harder than I expected. People burst into laughter, sharp, cold, cruel. My mother laughed the loudest. Amanda pretended to hide her smile behind her wineglass. My throat tightened, but I swallowed the pain. I'd been told all my life to be the strong one, the one who doesn't complain, the one who understands. And then it happened. Liam shoved the cake off the table. The porcelain plate shattered, frosting splattered across the patio, candles rolled under people's feet. The laughter that followed was the ugliest sound I'd ever heard. I froze. The serving knife trembled in my hand. No one told him to apologize. Not even my father, who sat on his phone pretending not to notice. My mother's voice cut through the noise. "Oh, come on, Daisy, don't be so sensitive." Sensitive, that word. I'd heard it 100 times. It meant stay quiet, don't make a scene, accept the disrespect. I placed the knife down gently, untied the apron around my waist, and walked toward the door. My footsteps echoed against the wooden deck, each one heavier than the last. Their laughter followed me, fading only when the night swallowed me whole. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. I walked to my car, trembling, not with sadness, but with something darker, something that had been building for years. When I finally sat behind the wheel, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror, realizing that the person I saw no longer fit in that house. That night, I drove for hours along the empty Idaho highway. The headlights carved tunnels of light through the dark. I kept hearing their laughter, that sharp, echoing sound, replaying over and over in my head. By the time I reached my apartment in Seattle, it was well past midnight. The city was quiet, the rain steady against the windows. I dropped my keys on the counter, kicked off my shoes, and sank into the silence. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. For a split second, I hoped it was an apology. But when I opened it, my stomach went cold. "We've decided to cut all contact. Don't come back, ever." And right below it, a little red heart. Amanda's reaction. I just stared at the screen. I didn't cry. I didn't text back. I just sat there, numb. My eyes fell on my open laptop, my budget spreadsheet still glowing from earlier. 2 lines stared back at me. Parents' mortgage, $400 month. Amanda's SUV loan, $640 month, both automatically withdrawn from my account. Both loans I had co-signed 3 years ago because my mom said, "You're the responsible one, honey. Just help the family out." Back then, it had felt like love. Now it looked like a leash. The rain outside grew louder, like a ticking clock counting down to something inevitable. I scrolled through old messages. "We'll pay you back soon. You know we love you." Just until Amanda's business picks up. But next month never came. I opened a new message to Mom. My fingers shook, but my mind was clear. I'm removing my name from both loans tomorrow. No explanation, no emojis, no guilt. I hit send. Then I placed my phone face down on the table. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like defeat. It felt like freedom. Small, fragile, but real. They wanted me gone? Fine. This time they were the ones who'd feel the absence. Morning came gray and heavy. Seattle light has a way of making everything look washed out, like the world is holding its breath before it rains again. I hadn't slept. My eyes burned, but my mind was clear. Painfully, beautifully clear. I brewed a cup of coffee and stood by the window, watching the steam curl into the cold air. For the first time, my hands weren't shaking. I checked my phone. 100 missed calls. Mom, Dad, Amanda, even a few unknown Idaho numbers. My family group chat was exploding. "You've gone too far. Do you even know what you're doing to us? We raised you, this is how you repay us?" Not one message said, "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I took a slow sip of coffee, then opened my laptop. My bank's homepage glowed back at me. I typed in the words that felt like a declaration: Green First Bank, downtown Seattle branch. That afternoon, I walked into the bank wearing a gray sweater and quiet determination. The woman at the counter smiled politely, asking if I had an appointment. "Yes," I said, "with Mr. Diaz." He was waiting in a small consultation room, pale blue walls, one fern in the corner, and a view of the rainy street outside. Mr. Diaz looked up from his papers, mid-50s maybe, silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He stood to shake my hand. "Miss Wilson," he said, "I reviewed the documents you emailed. I think I understand what's happening." I sat down across from him, my fingers intertwined tightly in my lap. I co-signed 2 loans, one for my parents' house, one for my sister's SUV. I've been paying them for years. I just want out. He nodded slowly, as if he'd heard this story too many times before. "You're not the first person to be taken advantage of under the word family." Those words sank deep. He opened a file and slid a stack of documents toward me. "If you can prove you don't live in the house or benefit from the property or vehicle, we can begin the liability release process. You'll also have the option to freeze any joint credit accounts." I handed him a folder I'd prepared the night before. My lease agreement, pay slips, screenshots of my payments, and one text from my mom that read, "The house is ours, honey. You just helped us sign." He read it all silently, then looked up and said the words that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Everything we need is here. Let's begin the release process." He picked up his phone, called legal, and said calmly, "Initiate co-borrower removal for Daisy Wilson, effective immediately." The sound of his pen clicking was small, but to me it was thunder. I signed each paper with steady hands. Each signature felt like cutting another invisible chain that had held me down for years. When the last page was stamped, he smiled gently. "You did the right thing, Miss Wilson. Sometimes protecting yourself is the only way to teach others to respect you." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. My throat ached, not from sadness this time, but from release. Outside, the wind brushed cold against my cheeks as I stepped out of the bank. The city noise felt softer somehow. I stopped by a small cafe on the corner, ordered a cappuccino, and sat by the window. When the barista handed me the cup, she smiled. "Have a good day." And I meant it when I answered, "I will." That evening, my phone lit up again. The group chat had found me. "You've ruined everything. Mom's credit is destroyed. Amanda's car might get taken. You'll regret this, Daisy." Their anger poured out like venom. Threat after threat, guilt after guilt. I stared at the screen for a long minute. Then I typed one calm line back. "I just stopped paying for people who laughed when my cake hit the floor." I hit send. Then I set my phone down and went back to cooking dinner. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peace, deep, still, and sacred. For the next 3 days, things were quiet. Too quiet. I almost started to believe they'd accepted it. Until the knocking started. It was sharp, angry, relentless. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoed through my tiny Seattle apartment, vibrating the walls. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze mid-step, the pot of boiling pasta still hissing behind me. I knew that knock, that rhythm, that fury. Slowly, I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. My breath caught. Standing outside were my mother and Amanda, two faces I'd known my whole life, now twisted in anger. Mom's jaw was tight, her lips pressed thin. Amanda's eyes were wild, her mascara smudged. "Daisy!" Mom's voice cracked through the door, trembling and furious. "Open this door right now, we need to talk." Amanda's voice followed, shrill and breaking. "You ruined everything! The bank froze our accounts. Mom's credit is gone. My car's being repossessed." They looked desperate. Not remorseful, not sorry, just desperate. I didn't open the door. Instead, I reached for my phone, opened the voice recorder, and quietly said, "Seattle Police Department. I need to report a trespassing. 2 people outside my apartment refusing to leave." "Do you know them?" the dispatcher asked. "Yes," I whispered, eyes still on the door. "They're my family. But right now, they're just people crossing a line." The pounding grew louder. Amanda hit the door with her palm. "You're destroying this family! You think this makes you strong? You're selfish, Daisy!" Mom's voice cracked again, half rage, half tears. "We're your parents. You don't treat family like enemies." 10 minutes later, flashing blue and red lights washed over the hallway. 2 police officers appeared on my building's camera, 1 man, 1 woman, calm and firm. I watched as they spoke to my mother first. She pointed at my door, shouting, "She's my daughter! She ruined our finances!" The male officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, this is private property. If she's asked you to leave, you need to go." Mom's voice shook. "But I'm her mother," he answered softly. "That doesn't give you the right to trespass." Through the intercom, I spoke quietly, so only the microphone caught it. "If they act like strangers, then I have the right to protect my space." The officer nodded slightly, a silent understanding. He turned back to them and said, "This conversation is over." Amanda's face twisted with frustration. Mom's eyes filled with disbelief. "You'll regret this, Daisy," she shouted. "Blood doesn't disappear just because you say so." I didn't answer. I didn't open the door. The footsteps faded down the stairs. The police lights disappeared. And for the first time, the silence that followed didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like air. Fresh, clean air after years of suffocating under someone else's expectations. I slid down against the door, my back to the wall, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My hands trembled. Not from fear, but from freedom. The recorder was still running. I saved the file and named it. Boundaries, April 17th, 2025. After the court incident, my life became a storm I could no longer control. I left that courtroom shattered, humiliated not just by my ex-husband, but by my own mother's laughter. That sound haunted me for weeks. I would wake up in the middle of the night, hearing her voice saying, "You deserve this." For days, I stayed locked inside my apartment, barely eating, barely sleeping. The world outside seemed cruel and loud. Everyone I once trusted had turned their back on me. My mother, the woman who gave me life, now treated me like a stranger. My ex-husband, Eric, had already moved on, posting pictures with his new girlfriend as if our years together meant nothing. One evening, as I scrolled through social media, I saw a post, Eric and my mother having dinner together. My heart froze. The caption read, "Family dinner night." I stared at it for a long time, my hands trembling. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was destruction. My own blood was sitting across the table from the man who ruined my life. I felt something shift inside me that night. Something dark. Something powerful. I decided I wouldn't be their victim anymore. The next morning, I started working on myself, physically and emotionally. I joined a fitness center, changed my diet, cut my hair short, and started attending therapy sessions. My therapist, Dr. Hayes, helped me face my pain instead of hiding from it. She told me, "Lena, healing doesn't mean forgiving the ones who broke you. It means you no longer let them control your peace." That sentence changed everything. 6 months later, I had rebuilt myself piece by piece. I found a new job at a law firm. Ironic, considering how the law once destroyed me. But this time, I wanted to understand the system that was used against me. I studied every case file, learned how people manipulated justice, and realized something shocking. Eric had lied in court. He had presented fake documents to make me look unstable, with the help of a lawyer who happened to be my mother's friend. I felt my blood boil. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated cruelty. I quietly started collecting evidence: emails, phone call logs, old texts, and screenshots from the night of the trial. Piece by piece, I built a case against both of them. One night, I drove to my mother's house. She opened the door, surprised to see me. "Lena," she said, forcing a smile, "you look different." "I am different," I replied coldly. "Can we talk?" We sat in the same living room where I'd grown up, where she used to braid my hair and tell me fairy tales. But that night, it felt like sitting in the lair of my enemy. "Why did you do it?" I finally asked. "Why did you side with him?" She sighed, pretending to be innocent. "Lena, you were always too emotional. Eric was stable, successful." "Successful?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "He lied in court, he cheated, he broke our vows, and you helped him." Her eyes flickered with guilt for a moment, then hardened. "I did what was best for our family's reputation." That was it, reputation. That's what I was traded for. I stood up and looked her dead in the eyes. "Then let's see how your reputation survives what's coming next." I left the house, leaving her speechless. The next few weeks, I worked silently but strategically. I sent all the evidence I had to the court, exposing Eric's fake documents and the lawyer's illegal involvement. Within a month, the news broke. Local lawyer under investigation for fabricating court evidence. Eric's name was dragged through every headline, his business contracts canceled, and his new relationship publicly mocked. And my mother? Her friends stopped inviting her to parties. Her reputation, the one thing she valued more than her daughter, was destroyed. When I received the official letter from the court declaring my case reopened and my name cleared, I sat in my car and cried, not out of sadness, but release. Revenge didn't heal me, but it gave me closure. A few days later, I visited my mother again, not out of anger, but to say goodbye. She looked older, weaker, and lonelier. "You got what you wanted," she whispered bitterly. "No," I said softly. "I got what I deserved, the truth." As I walked away from her house for the last time, I realized something profound. Family doesn't always mean love. Sometimes family is the first to wound you, and you must learn to save yourself. That night, I stood on my balcony watching the city lights. The pain was still there, faint but real. Yet beneath it, a new feeling was growing: freedom. Because after losing everything, I found the only thing that truly mattered: myself. Had been nearly a year since I walked out of my mother's house for the last time. My life had slowly begun to find balance. I had a stable job, a few close friends, and peace, something I once thought I'd never feel again. Every morning I woke up early, made coffee, and watched the sunrise from my small apartment balcony. It wasn't luxury, but it was mine, and that made it perfect. One ordinary afternoon, while I was at the law firm reviewing client files, my phone buzzed. It was a call from an unknown number. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Is this Lena Carter?" The voice was unfamiliar, deep, calm, almost hesitant. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Detective Simon Brooks. I've been reviewing a few old files connected to your case. There's something you should know. Something that never made it to the court record." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I can't discuss details over the phone," he said. "But it's about your family, your mother specifically. Are you available to meet tomorrow?" That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with questions. Had my mother done something else behind my back? Was Eric still connected somehow? The next morning, I met Detective Brooks at a small cafe downtown. He was in his late 40s with kind eyes but a serious expression. He slid a folder across the table toward me. "These documents were found during a corruption investigation involving your mother's lawyer friend. While tracing his financial records, we discovered large transactions linked to an offshore account, one that your mother used under a different name." I frowned. "Why would she have an offshore account?" He leaned forward. "Because she was paid to help Eric win the case. And not just that. She also helped him hide certain assets that legally belonged to you." I froze. "You're saying my mother took money from my ex-husband?" He nodded. "Yes, around $75,000. My breath caught in my throat. My own mother had sold my pain for money. I couldn't even feel anger anymore, just numbness. "Thank you, Detective," I managed to say. "I appreciate you telling me. As I drove home, tears blurred my vision. I pulled over, gripping the steering wheel tightly. I had already made peace with the idea that my mother betrayed me out of pride or reputation. But for money? That was beyond forgiveness. The next day, I went back to her house. She looked surprised to see me again. "Lena, you came back?" "Yes," I said coldly, "to ask you one last question." I pulled the folder from my bag and dropped it on the table. "Why did you do it?" Her face turned pale. "Where did you get that?" "It doesn't matter. Just answer me. Was I really worth $75,000 to you?" She stayed silent for a long moment, then whispered, "You'll never understand, Lena. I did what I had to do." "What you had to do?" I repeated in disbelief. "You destroyed your daughter's life for cash." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't believe them anymore. I turned to leave, but she suddenly said, "Wait, there's something you don't know. You think Eric betrayed you, but it started long before him." I stopped at the doorway. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, her hands trembling. "Eric wasn't just your husband. He was your father's son." I spun around, stunned. "What?" She nodded, crying now. "Your father had an affair years before you were born. Eric was the child from that affair. When you met him as adults, I thought it was destiny playing a cruel trick. I tried to separate you, but you were already in love. I panicked. I didn't know how to tell you. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My knees went weak. "You're lying," I whispered. "You have to be lying." She shook her head. "I wish I was." The room started spinning. Every memory, every kiss, every promise, every fight felt twisted and wrong. I felt sick to my stomach. Without another word, I left the house, slamming the door behind me. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind spiraling. Could it be true? Was Eric really my half-brother? That would explain his strange behavior after our marriage, his guilt, his sudden coldness, his eagerness to end things. That night, I called Detective Brooks again and asked him to check the birth records of Eric's parents. The next morning, he confirmed it. Eric's father's name matched my father's. It was true. I spent the next few days in silence, avoiding everyone. The pain was beyond anything I'd felt before, deeper than betrayal, colder than revenge. My whole past had been a lie. A week later, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Eric. "Lena, if you're reading this, I know you found out. I wanted to tell you years ago, but your mother made me promise not to. I was torn between love and guilt. I didn't marry you out of cruelty. I married you because I truly loved you. And that's what destroyed me. I'm leaving the country. I hope someday you find peace. The peace I could never give you." I read it again and again, tears falling onto the page. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, just sadness. Because even in this twisted, broken story, I realized something. Love and pain often come from the same place. That night, I stood by the ocean, letting the waves crash at my feet. I whispered to the wind, "I forgive you all, but I'll never forget." And for the first time, the word forgiveness didn't feel weak. It felt like freedom. It had been 3 months since I learned the truth. About Eric, about my mother, and about everything that shattered the life I thought I knew. The world hadn't stopped, but I had. I stopped trying to fix what was broken and started learning to live with the cracks. Every morning, I'd sit on the same balcony where I once cried myself to sleep, but now I breathed differently. The pain was still there, quiet, like a scar that no longer bleeds. But I had learned something powerful. You don't need to erase your past to move forward. You just have to stop letting it define you. One day, while leaving work, I saw a poster outside a community hall. It read, "Women's Voices, a legal awareness workshop for women who've been silenced." Something stirred inside me. Maybe this was my sign. I walked inside, uninvited, and sat at the back, listening to stories of women who had been betrayed, abused, and dismissed by those they trusted most. As I listened, I realized their stories weren't much different from mine, just different names, faces, and places. After the session ended, one of the organizers approached me. "You're new here. Would you like to share something next week?" I hesitated. For years, my story had been my shame, but now, maybe it could be my strength. The next week, I stood at the front of the hall facing nearly 50 women, My hands shook, but my voice didn't. "My name is Lena Carter," I began, "and I was destroyed by the people I loved most. My husband, my mother, my own family. But I'm still here, and that's what matters." I told them everything: the lies, the betrayal, the humiliation, and finally, the truth that tore my world apart. But I ended differently this time. "I thought revenge would set me free," I said, "but it didn't. What truly freed me was learning to forgive. Not for them, but for myself." When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Soon, everyone joined in. A few women were crying. Some hugged me afterward and said, "You gave me courage." That day changed everything. Within months, I began volunteering at the organization, helping women understand their legal rights and navigate cases of emotional and financial abuse. My background at the law firm helped me guide them, not as a lawyer, but as someone who had walked through fire and survived. The local media soon picked up my story. One article was titled, "From Victim to Voice, the Woman Who Turned Betrayal into Empowerment." At first, I was afraid of what people, or even my mother, might think. But then I remembered something my therapist once told me: when you speak your truth, the right people will listen. A few weeks later, I received a letter at the office. The handwriting was shaky. It was from my mother. "Lena, I don't expect forgiveness. I've lost everything. Friends, money, and even the respect I once valued more than love. I now understand that what I did was unforgivable. But seeing what you've become, I'm proud of you, even if I don't deserve to be. I hope one day you'll find peace in your heart for me." I didn't reply. But I didn't tear the letter either. I placed it in my drawer, beside Eric's last note. Both were painful reminders, but they no longer controlled me. Months passed. My work grew into something bigger. I started an online platform called Rise Again, where women from around the world shared their stories anonymously. Within a year, it became a movement, a place where pain turned into purpose. One evening, as I sat at my desk reviewing a story submission, I noticed something unusual. The email was from a woman named Grace Brooks. She wrote, "I've been following your journey, Lena. You may not know me, but I'm Detective Simon Brooks' wife. He always spoke about how strong you were. He passed away last month, but before he did, he said, 'Tell Lena she changed more lives than she'll ever realize. Thank you for giving hope to others.'" I put my hand over my heart and whispered, "Thank you, Simon." That night, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. The same city that once made me feel small and broken. Now, it felt like home again. I had lost everything once: love, family, and trust. But in losing all that, I found something priceless: my purpose. I smiled, whispering softly to myself, "I was born from betrayal, but I rose from it too." And maybe that's what life is. Not about avoiding pain, but learning to rise every time it breaks you. As I turned off the lights and looked at my reflection in the glass, I didn't see the broken girl from the courtroom anymore. I saw a woman who survived, and finally, truly lived. And that was my victory.